of high and low pressure sequences has to be put in the form of a particular sequence in order to continuously generate this desired medical grade oxygen. On the left hand side, I am showing a simple process flow diagram for generating this medical grade oxygen. At the left top corner of the diagram, you can see that it is the base. It's basically the ambient air. This ambient air is taken through air filter to eliminate all the particulate matters. So here I have indicated it as particulate matter 2.5. Depending on the specifications of Indian Pharmacopoeia or any other specification, as per the requirement, the desired filter can be placed here. Once the air is filtered, it is taken through a compressor. It can be a simple reciprocating compressor or a screw compressor or so on and so forth, where the pressure of the air is increased to the desired level. Once the pressure of air is increased to the desired pressure, the air has to be now cooled, and then some moisture in the air has to be eliminated. Now that is done through a chilling system and a refrigerated drying system, which I have indicated there. So once the high pressure air is taken through a drying system and a cooling system, it is then taken through one more level of filtration system, wherein any other particulate matters or oil content or whatever associated typically with the downstream machinery are totally eliminated as per the specifications. Now, once the gas is cleaned to the desired level of specifications, it is taken up, and then here you can see nearly in the middle of the diagram where we have shown a cycle, we have two columns, column 1 and column 2. In the process starts with column 1, wherein we start filling the column 1, and it reaches the desired pressure, and it allows the oxygen to escape out from that. After some time, that column 1 gets saturated. We cut off the gas from that column 1, and then we supply the compressed air to column 2. From there, the separation of air and nitrogen takes place. In the meanwhile, column 1 is subjected to low pressure, so that absorbed nitrogen is taken out and it is regenerated. So basically what happens is column 1 is in cycle for some time. After some time, the column 2 goes into cycle, column 1 goes into desorption. So the process keeps on switching between column 1 and column 2 depending on the timings. So the gas that is coming out of both column 1 and column 2 intermittently is in turn fed into a volume or the storage pressure vessel, and there is a continuous monitoring of the purity of gas that is coming out directly in the line as well as in the storage vessel. And if the purity of the gas falls below 90%, then remedial action is taken place, and in worst case the system is immediately shut down. On the right hand side, you can see there is a table that has been indicated wherein we show from 0 to T1, T1 to T2, so on and so forth up to T8. These are called as the intermediate processes that a column goes through until it completes one full cycle. And typically the design that we have evolved has got a cycle time of between 120 and 150 seconds. So that essentially means each column undergoes one particular cycle in 120 to 150 seconds. So it will be generating oxygen for some time, and then the next the moment it stops generating oxygen, it switches over to the next column. That way, by means of intermittent switching, we are able to continuously generate the desired oxygen. Next slide, please. Okay, here is the typical specification of the medical oxygen generator that we have developed at our institute. It is a continuous operating low pressure swing absorption system. Typically, the oxygen generating systems that are available in the market operate between ambient pressure or slightly negative pressure to about 7.5 bar operating pressure or the peak pressure. What we have developed is a low pressure system which operates between ambient conditions and typically about a 2.5 bar gauge. So the operating range of our system itself is low. That has a substantial impact in terms of the cost of electricity required for compressing the air. And the capacity of our system is about 3 normal cubic meter of oxygen per hour. and the feed air requirement is typically about 30. It's typically about 10 times as per the standards. So this is generally a thumb rule that we can take. Whatever is the amount of air that we send, 1/10 of that will be pure oxygen that is available, and then this is sufficient to support typically about 10 to 20 bed hospital. 10 when it is typically on ventilators, whereas 20 when it is just nasal oxygen that is supplied. And this system can be used to actually fill up about 10 47-liter cylinders, which are stored at about 200 bars. So if bank of cylinders available, then this system can support to fill up those blanks. I have given some operating pressure and then temperature, relative humidity, and the vessels have been designed to about 8 bar pressure, and the feed fluctuation allowed is plus or minus 30%. So that is the beauty of it. This particular system can take variations of up to 30%. So it's 70% of the rated capacity all the way up to 130% of the rated capacity the system can move. Now we have a previous slide, please. Yeah, we have carried out some kind of a characterization of the pure oxygen that is generated, and these are the specifications. The oxygen purity is between 90 and 96%. Typically we get it consistently at 93%. CO and CO2 levels are less than 5 and 30 ppm, and noise level is also less than 65. This is all as per the requirements of the Indian Pharmacopoeia. So we meet all these requirements. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, in order to arrive at this particular functional design, there are certain parameters which are critical. The first one is type of zeolite, that is the bed material. Now, one very important factor that we need to understand here is, depending on the capacity of the bed material and depending on the operating working pressure of the bed material, the size of the system and the cycle time of the system can change substantially. As such, choice of zeolite or choice of bed material becomes extremely critical. And here we have listed some of the bed materials available. Typically, this bed material is available from Arkema, Honeywell, Zeochem, etc. Arkema is the one which is most commonly used. And as far as the absorption capacity of bed material is concerned, it lies between 8 to 20 normal liter nitrogen per kg. So if you take 1 kg of the bed material, it can be anywhere between 8 and 20 normal liters of nitrogen it can absorb at 20 degrees and 1 atmospheric pressure. Now the next one, please, is a very important parameter that is called as selectivity. That is, again, we seem to have lost the screen. But anyway, I'll just continue for a couple of minutes. The very important parameter is selectivity, that is the ratio of nitrogen to oxygen. Typically what this means is when we have bed material to absorb nitrogen, we cannot design a bed material that can absorb only nitrogen. It's not possible. Okay? Because of the thermodynamic requirements, it is not possible. So typically what happens is, if a system absorbs nitrogen, it also absorbs some amount of oxygen. Okay, so I cannot design, or I don't have a material, there is no material available in the market which will allow us to completely absorb nitrogen and allow only oxygen to be dissolved. So if it absorbs some oxygen, then some nitrogen also will be absorbed. Okay, so that is one important factor that we need to design. We need to understand typically the nitrogen to oxygen ratio or the selectivity should be as high as possible, so that we lose very little on oxygen and our oxygen separation capacity will be very good. So absorption capacity and selectivity are two important parameters, and crushing strength is a physical parameter, wherein bed material, being again of some standard material, can get crushed if it is subjected to continuous mechanical load. So that is one thing. Then comes the particle size. We have these particles to vary anyway from 0.3 millimeters to much higher values. As we all know, smaller the particle size, better it is in terms of surface area. better could be better it is in terms of absorption, but the drawback or the lacunae will be in terms of the pressure drop. We will have to lose the pressure drop could be substantial across the length of the bed. And similarly, the bulk density, higher the bulk density, of course, we'll have smaller bed volumes, vice versa. So these are some of the typical design parameters that need to be accounted for. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Just getting there.
Yeah.
Did you see the next slide? No.
No, it's still the same slide.
Is that all right?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. Now, those are some of the design parameters that I discussed earlier, and then one general guideline is also what I would like to make present here. That is, these bed materials have extremely high affinity to water or moisture. So one thing that we need to take extreme precaution is no moisture from the compressed air should be allowed to reach these bed materials. The moment the bed material absorb the moisture, they will almost completely lose their ability to absorb nitrogen. So that's where a very big challenge comes in. So we need to ensure that there is sufficient amount of alumina or any other material which will absorb all the moisture, which will eliminate all the moisture before the air is allowed to actually interact with the bed material. The second thing is compression process. Again, it is preferable to have oil-free compressors, but in case oil-free compressors are not available, if they are not available to act in a continuous manner, or if they are not really available in the desired capacity, then we can go for oil compressors. But then again, we need to put a guard in order to ensure that no oil from the machinery itself moves into the system. And again, one more point would like to be made here is while reciprocating compressors are typically inexpensive, screw compressors are best from noise perspective, because here 65 decibels is the noise that is limited because it is in a hospital environment. 65 decibels is the recommendation from Pharmacopoeia, so we have to keep the noise within that level. So screw compressors are generally recommended. And then we need to maintain the pressure and we need to maintain the temperature of the air that goes in also low, because higher the temperature, the bed material starts losing its ability to absorb nitrogen. So typically what we were mentioning earlier, between 8 to 20 normal liters per kg, this is at 25 degrees centigrade. Suppose the air now operates, the air cent is at 40 degrees, this can immediately drop down to anywhere between 4 and 10 normal liter per cubic meter per kg of bed material. So that is one thing that needs to be clearly looked at. And then the last one that I would like to flag is the process walls. Now, this process is heavily dependent on the accuracy with which the walls operate, and the walls operation sequentially, and then the wall should operate very quickly. So robust rugged walls will have to be used in case of designing these systems. Next slide, please. So some of the salient features of the system that we have already built in. One salient feature is it is a six-step continuous. It's a six-step continuous process. Typically, what others use, or what commercial systems use, are typically about 4 normal cubic meters, and our system satisfies between 10 to 20 bed hospital as per Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and the product is as per Indian Pharmacopoeia. Availability of product gas at 2.5 bar gauge. This pressure can again be regulated depending on the typical storage pressure required downstream. And coming to the last 2 points, whereas what we have done is we have used all stainless steel material as specified in the Pharmacopoeia. So stainless steel will ensure that there is no corrosion or any such related challenges in the subsequent operational time. and the footprint is typically between 1.5 to 2.5 meters, and the system itself can deliver up to 4 normal cubic meter per hour, whereas we operate it between 3.5 normal cubic meter per hour, and the average power consumption is about 1.5 kilowatt hour per normal cubic meter, which can definitely be optimized substantially. Next slide, please. This is the actual plate of the plant that we currently have operational in our institute. And the right top corner, I'm not too sure how clear the image has come. You can see for fairly long operational period. For a fairly long operational period, we have the purity of oxygen to be maintained at well above 98%. And one instantaneous snap of the oxygen also I show in the right bottom corner, which shows 93.0%. As can be seen, it's a simple,
now I can hear you.
it's a simple typical
you have to speak now.
The 3 normal cubic meter oxygen plant. We have done a lot of performance analysis and characterization of this particular oxygen generation system. I will now hand over to discuss about the performance analysis. Ashdeep, over to you, please. Over to you, Ashdeep.
Hello.
Yes,
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi to all. So thank you so much, Professor and Dr. Anand. I'll be talking about the performance analysis and some of the experiments that we have carried out in lab. So because if you have designed any system, you just need to know that how it is performing, and you just need to know what are the characteristics of the system under different operating conditions. Sir, next slide, please. Yeah, so this first graph that I have put is just to show you that how the system was performing in a long run. You can see here that this particular graph or the particular results is at absorption pressure of 2.7 bar, and we were continuously getting the oxygen purity level of around average of about 91.8. For like 5 hours, the composition was maintained more than 90%. The required oxygen percentage, which is decided by the Ministry of Health, and the output flow that we were getting at that point in time was around 2.5 normal meter cube per hour, and we have set our surge vessel pressure to about 2.2 bar. So there are 3 points to notice. The first point is that it takes some time for the system to respond. You can see here that it has taken around 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes to get into a cyclic steady state. And I think this happens with all the systems. It takes like 10 to 12 cycles for all the separation systems to respond to a particular condition, and then it just runs continuously. And in a smaller side of the graph, I've shown that how the purity level was for starting from 30th minute to 300th minute. So you can see it is always greater than 90, and the average purity was around 91.8. We have done a number of tests, and most of the tests which we have done are more than 5 hours a day, because the efficiency of or the performance of the system can only be established if you run for a continuous hours. So this is the first thing. Sir, next slide, please. Sorry. Yeah. It's not in a slideshow mode, sir.
No, I will do that. Just 1 second.
Yeah.
Just 1 second, because my mic is on and I need to switch it off. Just 1 second. Go ahead.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, and Dr. Anand also pointed, so when you have designed any system, characterizing that system is really important. You have some input conditions, and based on those input conditions, you get to know some performance indicators. And one of the most important performance indicators, I will not say it's a performance indicator, it's a requirement. The requirement is that we need oxygen more than 90%. 90 to 96, we can't go more than 96 because argon cannot be separated, and whatever is left after 96 is the argon. So the first very important input parameter is that at what pressure you are going to work. There are two main experiments that we have been doing, although we have done at a little higher pressure also, but because we wanted to reduce the operational cost of the system, we have done at around 2.5 bar and around 3 bar. You can see the results that we are getting. At 2.6 bar also, and also at 3 bar, the purity of the system is maintained. In this case also, it has taken some like 20 minutes or around 10 cycles for the system to respond to a particular condition. Sorry sir, the screen share has ended. Okay, till the screen share is on, maybe I'll just tell you what all other input parameters are. So one of the input parameters is absorption time. So for the absorption pressure, at what pressure you're going to carry on your separation. Then very important component or very important indicator, a very important input parameter is the purging time. So purging, as Nansar also mentioned, that purging is basically a kind of process where you clean the bed. So basically whatever oxygen you have, you're going to purge that oxygen through the columns so that the bed can get clean for the next cycle. And then the third thing is also, which we have noticed, is that the pressure that you're going to maintain in the surge vessel is also very, very important. So whatever pressure you're going to work out with respect to surge vessel, that plays a very critical role. Sir, the screen is not visible. I think you have to share it again. Hello.
Minute. I'm just doing that, Harshdeep, just doing it.
Okay.
Just come. Some people should move to the Facebook. That will help us, because then we can have the supper bag. Otherwise, Harshdeep, I'm just getting you.
Okay, sir, no problem.
Some people should leave who can go to the Facebook. That will help us a great deal. Yes.
Yeah, sir. So now it is visible. So I was talking about there are some input parameters that you have to control. The first of the input parameters is absorption pressure. So it is very important at what pressure you're going to carry out your separation, because the geolites are really specific to the working conditions. And if you increase your pressure, your separation is going to be better, as told by an answer for this, as you can see in the absorption isotherms also. So what we have seen is that you can also adjust your output flow rates by changing pressure. So for example, if I'm sending more gas into the column for the same cycle step times, you will be able to get more output at the outlet if you maintain a particular surge vessel pressure also. So we have seen that if you are working at 2.6 bar gauge, the average purity which we were getting was 91.3 with a flow rate of around 2.4 normal meter cube per hour, and at 3 bar gauge we were getting a little lower purity because we have changed our surge vessel pressure. And delta P between the adsorbers and the surge vessel pressure is really important. You see that in 2.6 and 2.1 there is a pressure difference of 0.5, but when you have moved to 3 bar gauge as an absorption pressure, you have kept through 2.3 bar gauge as the surge vessel pressure, you see that the delta P was only 0.7, and that's why the purity has dropped a bit. But anyways, it is maintained more than 90, so this can also be used for various downstream applications. So one thing that we are sure about the system is that the system can handle around plus minus 30% in the plus minus 30% fluctuation in the feed flow rate. Sir, next slide, please. Yeah. So the second most important parameter that one need to check is check is the purging time. So purging is basically a process which is performed after desorption. So what is going to happen is that, for example, if I have two columns and I'm sending gas to one of the columns, the other column should go under desorption mode, so that whatever gas, whatever nitrogen is absorbed there should be dissolved to the ambient or to the vacuum. But we were working on a PSA, so it is just dissolved to the ambient. So whatever nitrogen has absorbed, it will get dissolved to the ambient. After that also, there might be some amount of nitrogen that might be present in interparticle voids, and you also want that nitrogen should also be out. So for this purpose, we do purging, and we send the output pure oxygen from the vessel. We can send from the vessel also, or we can send from the output line also. So we send that output that pure oxygen to that column which is undergoing desorption, and it will clear or clean all the nitrogen that is present in the column. So we have done it for 4 seconds, 5 seconds, and 6 seconds. We have seen as we are increasing our purging time, our purity is increasing. You see at 4 seconds, when we were doing purging for 4 seconds, it was 89.5. But when I'm doing at 6 seconds, it increased to 91.9. But when you are using your output oxygen for purging purpose, you are going to get a little less flow rates at the outlet. Your recovery of oxygen that you're going to get at the outlet will decrease a bit. But you have to just play with these numbers, test these numbers, so that you work under optimum conditions. So this is also one of the very important parameters. Next slide, sir. Then I have just summarized all the experiments, most of the experiments. So you see that we have conducted around 4 runs, run 1, run 2, run 3, and 4, and under different operating conditions, from a absorption pressure of around 2.4 to 2.6 for a purging time of 5 and 6. I have not used a purging time of 4 because when I was using a purging time of 4 seconds, my purity was 89.5, which is less than what is required. So I'm using only 5 and 6 seconds. So I just want to get the purity of more than 90%. Then surge vessel pressure was maintained between 2.1 to 2.3, and the flow rate at the outlet was around 2.3 to 2.6. What we have seen is that in all the runs, the purity was between 90 to 96. And we have seen, as I mentioned you, that the outflow flow rate has increased when I decreased my purging time, because now my most of my gas will be coming out, and I'll be using less gas in my purging step. And the third, which is a very important point which I've seen, is that we can really regulate the flow rate that is available at the outlet just by varying the surge vessel pressure and also the feed flow rate. Next slide, sir. So this graph is very interesting. So you see that as I was mentioning that if you just want to consider any gas separation system, there are basically 2 steps. If I ignore my other steps, there are adsorption and there is desorption. In adsorption step, my nitrogen is getting adsorbed on the column. In desorption step, whatever nitrogen is absorbed, it is coming out to the ambient. So when you do this, this is going to be a continuous system, because you have 2 cylinders, and those 2 cylinders work in tandem in continuous mode to generate oxygen for continuously. So people have suggested in the literature that if your oxygen that is being oxygen, the desorption gas, is less than 20%, you have designed your system well. So when we were doing our experiments, we have seen that at 2.6 bar, my oxygen at the outlet or in the desorption side was around 16. Average it was 16.8%. And whenever I was doing my adsorption at 3 bar, I was getting my O2 purity of around 15.8. So why it has decreased? See, when I was working at 2.6 bar, I was underutilizing my bed. So whatever nitrogen was getting separated, that was getting separated in the bed. For example, if I have a column which is having like 100 centimeter length, and if I'm just working at 2.6 bar gauge, I'm using around 80 centimeter of the length. But what is happening is when I have gone to higher pressure, I'm using most of the length. So in that 20 centimeter length, that 100 minus 80 in 2.6 bars case, there some amount of oxygen also gets absorbed. And when you dissolve, that oxygen is going to come out. As I have increased my bed utilization at high pressure, my oxygen has come down. And this is really great, because your recovery values will also change. There is one more important parameter that people generally say in literature, that is the column pressure drop. So if the column, if the pressure in the column is dropping a lot, for example, the delta P at the inlet and outlet is huge, you will not be able to use your bed properly. And but in our case, we have seen that the pressure delta P between input and output is really below detection limits, BDL, below detection limits. So we that means that the pressure drop across the column was negligible. And also we have also measured the noise levels. We are around 65, 66 because we are using a reciprocating compressor, but we can really drop it by 10 to 15 to around 50 if we use a screw compressor. Next slide, sir. Now, when we were doing some various experiments, people used to come and they say that what kind of sensors you're using for oxygen. I just want to point here that we are using an electrochemical sensor, but when you go for any kind of certification, you need to show your GC traces, gas chromatography traces. So we also have that facility in our lab. We have collected our samples during samples from the output line also, and also from the desorption side. The gas chromatography system which we are using, the details of that is written in the top right corner, top right table. So you can see that the vessel purity from the GC results also was more than 90, 92.4, and in the desorption side also we have seen that it's around 15. That is what we have seen from our sensor as well. So the results are also confirmed by GC trace analysis, and the balance was nitrogen and argon. Argon we cannot measure with the current system because we are using argon as the moving phase. If you want to measure argon also, you need to use a different carrier for the GC, and helium is one of the best carriers to use. Next slide, sir. So people might have questions that why do you have the people who are really work on GC and be very well versed with the GC things. You can have questions that why you have two peaks coming up at around 9 and around 18. So I just want to mention that when we were doing calibrations for oxygen and zero air also, because you have to do some calibrations to know the exact numbers, then at that point in time also these peaks have come up. This is basically coming because the detector that is present is a thermal conductivity type, TCD detector. So we also give some ramp rates in the GC, and these are the positions that are same positions where our temperature ramps also change, and that's why these two ramps are coming up, and there is nothing they have to do with the gas composition. Next slide, sir. Yeah. So although there were some guidelines that Anand sir has mentioned, I just want to mention some more general guidelines that might be useful for the people who want to build a kind of do it yourself kind of system. So the first thing is that generally in separation systems, and particularly for air separation, the feed air to output oxygen ratio is around 8 to 15. For example, that if I want 1 meter cube of oxygen at the outlet per hour, I should supply around 8 to 15 meter cube per hour of air at the inlet. All these guidelines are kind of thumb rules which we have came across, and we have just devised them. Then second thing is that your D by D ratio, the diameter of the column to the diameter of the adsorbent should be greater than 10 to avoid wall channeling. Then the third thing is that your adsorber L by D ratio, the length of the adsorber and the diameter of the adsorber, this ratio needs to be around 3 to 5. If you increase your length a lot, your pressure drop is going to increase as the column length is increased. That people are aware of. Then talking about the superficial velocity, see as pointed that you know that there is some crush resistance of the adsorbent. So if I send a lot of gas from the to the column, my adsorbents can crush. So there is a kind of thumb rule that you need your superficial velocities be less than equal to 0.3 meter per second, and you'll be able to your adsorbents will be intact in this case. Then this is very interesting point which we got to know from our fundamental studies. First we did some fundamental studies and then we designed this. This is very important point that the kinetics of this separation, nitrogen and oxygen separation, is very fast. So if you maintain a lot of dead space into your column or into your lines, for example, my column is here and I have a longer line and then it is giving me the output, you're not really going to get the purities at the outlet. This we have seen in the process scale also, and many other people are facing this same problem that they are unable to get the purity. Please remove your dead spaces, please remove your dead volumes that are there in the tubing or in the column. This will ensure your purity coming out. Then coming about the mesh, So as we were mentioning that most of the people who are into separation, they are using oil compressors. Why? Because the oil free compressors are really expensive, and they just go for oil compressors, but they need some guard bed before that, so that any oil contaminants can be removed before the gas goes into the column. So there needs to be a proper meshing or proper separation between the main and guard adsorbents, or else what is going to happen is that the bulk density of these two adsorbents is going to be different. They are going to mix, and then they will be exposed to a high pressure coming gas, which can crush these adsorbents. Then there were some queries from the mails that people are unable to get the purities. I really suggest them that they should change their pH by PI ratio. pH is the highest pressure that is existing in the system. PI is the lowest pressure that is existing in the column. If they change that ratio, if they increase that ratio, for example, if I'm going towards higher pressure and my desorption is happening at a lower pressure, I am going to get the purity and flow rates also. Then feed and output line diameter is also really important, because if you keep your diameters really small, your delta P is going to be very high, and the ideal line velocities, which can be used as a thumb rule, should be around 6 to 8 meters per second. Next slide, sir. I think now Professor will take up the questions, and also he will inform about the regulatory information that we have in the institute. Thank you so much. Hello.
Hello.
Just 1 second. 1 second. Let me switch out the mic and then.
Hello.
Papa, I'm getting on phone because he couldn't join back due to some technical problem. So he'll be speaking now. Doctor, please start, doctor. Can everybody hear him?
Yes, sir. He is audible.
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. I'm sorry. Selectively, I have been out.